Hello, coaches. Welcome to another Coffee with Coaches. Today's topic is going to be on athlete underfueling, and we are going to talk a little bit about eating and body image concerns as well. I realize that some of these talks are kind of like, oh gosh, are you going to go full on eating disorder with us? And I really wanted to take the emphasis on underfueling today. So we will talk about eating disorders and your role as a coach, but I really want to make sure that we talk about underfueling as a whole. So welcome to the talk. My name is Cara Miller. I am your campus dietitian, and I'm really excited to go through this talk with you. The end of February is National Eating Disorder Awareness Week, and as we move into March, which is National Nutrition Month, I think this is a great opportunity to really address this topic and try to get some more insight around it so that not only you can encourage your athletes, but also gain knowledge yourself. So as mentioned, my name is Cara. I'm your campus dietitian. Please reach out if you need anything. I would love to do an on-campus talk either with your athletes or with the coaches. So if you're interested in that, my phone number is there, my email is there. I'm happy to get a hold of you and work something out so that we can do something on campus either later this month or maybe even in the month of April. I know we're getting ready for some of the tournaments and things like that coming up, so it can be a very busy time for everyone. I know sport is always a busy time, but I think it is fun to get in front of the athletes before summer. A lot of times that's their downtime, and it's a really great opportunity for them to improve their nutrition habits, try some different things nutrition wise to see what works, what doesn't, what causes upset stomach, what increases performance, so that they can really get a good rhythm going before they come back for fall. They've got some great habits started, so they're going to be great when they start in with their new college semester. They'll be already in the good routine of nutrition, so adding on the school isn't as big of a deal. So if that's something you're interested in, please reach out. Again, I would love to schedule something with your athletes or even another coach talk on campus. So something to think about as we move into this underfueling topic. Up to 38% of males and 58% of females are at risk for underfueling. Underfueling really just means that your needs are not being met from an energy perspective. And this is a college athlete statistic. So as we move into this, you're going to see that this not only has health consequences, but also performance consequences. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to do an understanding of our athletes. What are their energy needs? What is causing this underfueling? What is it? Why do they underfuel? And then what are we looking for? So if there's underfueling happening, what are you looking for as a coach or as even a captain of the team? You want to make sure that we're assessing the risk and able to identify any of those key factors. Once you've done that, what can you do? So asking for help, talking with your athletes, and some of these prevention strategies. First things first, athletes have super high energy needs. So to get this even pendulum, you have to make sure your energy needs are meeting your food intake. If your food intake is a little under, then we're not meeting our energy needs. The opposite is also true. And I know a lot of times that's a concern for coaches. Are my athletes overfueling, not underfueling? But what we find is that their energy needs are so high going into their college years that really most of the time they're meeting their needs or even underfueling. So why is that? Well, we have practices. Most of the time when they're in high school, they're having one a days. You get to college, now it's two or more a day, especially in the training season. When you get into the competition season, maybe you have a tournament weekend, or maybe you have multiple things going on and not as much time to recover. The intensity is higher, the practices are longer, and now we also have to consider that they're growing and developing. So they've got muscle and bone health to consider. We've got recovery, which takes a little bit more energy. And I think too that a lot of times people forget that even recovery, the active recovery phase, or even if they've been injured, that still requires energy. The female athletes are going through their menstrual cycles. This requires more energy in certain times of the month. Digestion, our basic energy needs, our heart pumping, our stomach digesting, our brain function, all of this demands energy. On top of that, they still have to go to class and they have their daily activities. Whereas in high school, they may have just been in one building walking around. Now they're walking all over campus, let alone if they have an internship or they're doing clinical rotations for their nursing school. And so getting to a job, getting back, getting to practice, going to another thing, they're always running around, always walking around, and all of these create a higher energy need. So you can see that athletes might be under fueling, but how much is not enough? Well, it can mean as little as 3 to 500 calories below their energy needs to decrease performance and health. That's great, Cara, but how much is that? Not very much. This could honestly be a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. This could be a 16-ounce muscle milk. This could be a bowl of cereal. So little things like your athletes are done after practice, they're feeling really busy, they've got to run off to class, and they skip their post-workout snack for a few days in a row. That in itself could cause these performance decreases and health consequences. Maybe they're feeling exhausted in the evenings, they're going to study group, things like that. They used to have a bowl of cereal before bed or some kind of evening snack. They haven't been having it. So for a couple of nights in a row, that again could decrease performance or health consequences. So it doesn't have to be drastic amounts of not eating all day in order for these health and performance implications to be seen. I think that's really important to consider as a coach, making sure you're reminding athletes, hey guys, on your way out, make sure you grab your snack, or little things like, have you guys eaten this morning before practice? Or, hey, I know you've got a busy schedule this afternoon. Don't forget to throw a snack in your backpack. Little things like that make a really big difference in some of these underfueling for our athletes, especially when we're trying to put on more muscle and increase our endurance, which again requires more energy. They need to make sure that they're having these snacks so that they can build that muscle and they're not using the muscle as a form of energy. So one of the things that we talk about is REDS. You'll hear dietitians talk about this, and I think sometimes it's glossed over actually what it is. REDS stands for Relative Energy Deficiency in Sport. And so just the definition, a condition of energy deficiency causing adverse effects on all bodily systems. It affects both male and female. It used to be called the female athlete triad. They don't do that anymore. Males are also included. So it affects male and female athletes who do not fuel adequately. This could be intentionally or unintentionally. And I think that is something to consider as well. This may not be something that someone is trying to do. This could be, like I said, someone's running late for class and they don't have the snack that they need before they get there. Or even something as simple as athletes not having a vehicle or a car to go get groceries. And so then they don't have the snack when they get back to their dorm rooms. So things like this may be unintentional, but it can still affect their overall fueling. I know you as coaches are very focused on health. We will talk about performance implications as well, but when I've worked with all of you, you have great mindsets. I know you think about the athletes as a whole person and not just as a performer. And so I really appreciate that. Some of the health consequences that you might see, fatigue or mood changes, getting really easily agitated, even more so than our day today, right? Like a lot of people are easily agitated, but this might be a little bit extra. Anyone who's lost their menstrual cycle, anything from bone breaks or frequent stress fractures. Hey, this athlete keeps getting stress fractures. What's going on? We've sent them for bone density tests, but is there something else we could be looking at? Could be underfueling. Slow muscle growth. So this impacts performance as well, but maybe, they're on a weight plan to increase their strength and conditioning with the coach, and you're just not making the gains that you were expecting, and you can't really figure out why. Other things might be gum disease or cavities, depending on what they're eating or not eating. Frequent illnesses, again, a lot of upper respiratory conditions with athletes in general. That's kind of an overall overarching one. But if you find that they're getting more sick more frequently, that again could be underfueling. Low blood pressure, decreased heart rate. These are things that maybe the strength and conditioning coach or the trainer may recognize. Stomach upset, bloating, decreased appetite. Hey, coach, every time I eat something, I just feel so bloated. I just feel so distended. Do I have food allergies? That can be one of the questions. I haven't been eating because every time I eat, I just feel like really nauseous. There could be something else going on there, definitely. We'll talk about that. But this also could be a sign of underfueling. So how might this affect our performance? Well, we already mentioned if you have trouble concentrating or you have trouble sleeping, it could definitely decrease your coordination or your concentration might be impaired. And so like you might have someone who is normally jumping over the hurdles, no problem. And for some reason, they just feel clumsy lately. Like, how come they're doing that? Or, really having trouble making good decisions on the court or on the field. They used to be really like kind of with it, making really sharp decisions. And lately it just kind of feels a little delayed. Decreased training response. So again, not making the gains that they were expecting, or even decreased muscle mass, increased risk of stress fracture. We talked about that as well, and fatigue or decreased endurance. So all things to consider, both health consequences and performance consequences, but all signs and symptoms of underfueling. Why? Why are these athletes underfueling? We talked about that they have higher needs, but why might they not be eating anyway? Well, some of them are looking for those appearance gains. Maybe they're looking to get lean or get cut, right? Another thing might be a scale. Maybe they're looking to decrease their weight overall or decrease their body fat percentage. And that's one thing that I tried to discourage. But if we just specifically look at a number on a scale, that doesn't tell us overall health. So just kind of keeping that in mind, what are some of the things that are motivating the athletes to not eat enough, or some of the obstacles? Busy schedules. We talked about that, right? Like busy schedules are complicated for college students. So just encouraging them, hey, make sure you're grabbing snacks. What does your class schedule look like? I've even had athletes print out their class schedule before, and we highlight on there when they're going to fill their water bottle with blue, when they're going to eat their meals in yellow, when they're going to eat their snacks in red. So you've got these different highlights on there to kind of remind the athletes. You can set timers on your phone, anything to kind of remind them. Even the night before, set an alarm on your phone every night at 8 p.m. to remind you to put snacks in your backpack for the next day. Little things like that can really help them to increase their nutrition and increase their fueling. Lack of nutrition education. So I get a lot of athletes, they say, Cara, like I ate a granola bar and an apple for breakfast. I'm doing great, right? Like it's a good breakfast. And I was like, oh man, but you need like 3,000 to 4,000 calories a day. And I'm not a calorie counter. I don't encourage athletes to do it either. But we can see then that a granola bar and an apple will not be enough. Maybe it's different, dieting trends. Maybe it's misinformation, or maybe it's that they don't know how to cook. So that's another thing to consider. Do they know how to prepare foods on their own? What are their knife skills? Do they know how to use the microwave? Do they know how to use the oven in their apartment? So that they are able to prepare some of their own foods, and it's not then lack of access or something, but maybe it is lack of education. So just a little training might help them out a lot. Digestive concerns. We see after an intense practice, most people aren't very hungry, and that's when those liquid post snacks can be really helpful. But if you find that like someone's getting really bloated or crampy, frequent bathroom breaks, there might be something else going on there. They may need to see a doctor about that. But you can also consult with a dietitian just to kind of see if something else might be going on. But the more you don't use your digestive tract, then when you do eat something, the more upset it gets. So it's kind of this like weird cycle, right? Like the more you don't eat, the more you don't want to eat. And if you do eat, you don't feel good, which encourages you to not eat. So it's this kind of strange back and forth with that underfueling. And then also recognizing that there are some unhealthy relationships with food. I think a lot of people are very quick to jump to this, but that's probably not without reason. There are a lot of food fears out there. There's a lot of diet culture out there telling our athletes what to eat, what not to eat. This is good, this is bad. You are good, you are bad if you eat this. And being really afraid of maybe it's whole food groups, carbohydrates, maybe it's frequent dieting. They're doing intermittent fasting. I'm not sure. There's a lot of different things out there, but this could be in all forms of disordered eating or an eating disorder. So let's assess our risk. Underfueling signs and symptoms, just kind of keep in mind that one symptom doesn't mean they have an eating disorder. And as a coach, you are not supposed to diagnose. This is not your job. Know that you have people out there who are trained professionals who are willing to kind of take on some of these questions, and you're not alone. The idea is that you gather some of the information and encourage athletes to seek extra help. Again, this might just be nutrition education. It may need, how do you turn on the oven? How do you go grocery shopping? This may not be that something serious is going on, but if you recognize more than one or two items of that we're going to talk through here, or if you recognize like, hey, we've talked about adding more meals and snacks and they just aren't doing it, those might be instances where seeking extra help would be really, really helpful. So just kind of think about a few moderate kind of warning signs. consistently feeling hungry, hunger pains, or some of that GI distress, kind of upset stomach, or maybe intense cravings. A lot of times, if we really restrict, then we can binge at night. So it's kind of this like pendulum swinging where you don't eat anything all day and then you get home at 8 p.m. and you can eat everything in sight. And so, kind of these like swinging behaviors. I'm feeling very fatigued, not making it through practice, low energy levels, decreased training responses. All of these are really things that could be moderate signs and symptoms, or even things like trouble sleeping or irritability. And instead of judging and saying, like, geez, why don't you go to bed earlier? Which I don't think you say, but if you did, maybe come at it from a different approach. Like, you mentioned you're having trouble sleeping. Do you know why? Or have you been, you can have a good routine going? Do you have any questions about that? How does that make you feel during the day? Are you having trouble concentrating while you're in class? Just kind of asking more questions and being more inquisitive, being really caring, rather than judgmental. And then, of course, if any of these severe signs or symptoms are listed, that would be an instance where you may need to seek more attention more frequently or more quickly. Asking for a new uniform is not the end of the world. Athletes change throughout their course over the 4 or 5 years that they're here. But if every couple of months they're changing uniform, like, hey, coach, now I need a smaller size. Hey, now I need a bigger size. Or if it's bigger, 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 or smaller, 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 that could be an instance where you might want to ask for some help. Frequent stress fractures, loss of period, being really cold all the time could be a sign of underfueling as well. I think that's pretty much it for that one. All right. Possible signs of an eating disorder. So now I know I mentioned that, one or two signs could just mean they're underfueling, could just mean they need some education. But now if you get more and more, then really understanding the signs of possible eating disorder can be really helpful to you. And so we'll just go through a few of those. So if there is one sign doesn't mean anything in itself necessarily. Often they come together. So if you're noticing two or more of the things that we're going to talk about, that might be an instance where there might be an eating disorder, but again, that's not up to you to diagnose. Your goal is just to like learn more about them, be curious and inquisitive, and get them connected with the people that they need so that they can get a full assessment, kind of see what's going on. The other thing that I was going to say is a lot of times coaches are nervous to seek extra help because they're afraid that an athlete won't be able to play anymore. And that just isn't the case. Of course, it is case by case. We can't say for sure. But a lot of times the athlete is still able to train, they're still able to practice, all while still going through some of these counseling or exploration things to kind of see what is going on. And kind of keeping in mind too that, because they're underfueling, they're at high risk for a stress fracture or an injury. And if they don't get help right away, then being injured will put them out even longer. So kind of even if they do need to take a little bit of time off, not creating a stigma around that, but really saying like, hey, if you had an ACL tear or something went on, you would need a multidisciplinary approach to get better. If something is not right with our eating, then sometimes it takes more people to help to get you better. And if we do that, then you'll get back into playing more quickly, as opposed to, we let this drag on and on, it becomes a really big thing, then you actually get hurt and now you're out for the whole season or longer. We want to just make sure we're addressing things as it comes up. So a couple of things just to think about is with the food or eating habits, are they skipping meals? Do they have a lot of food rules? Are there a lot of like good and bad? Maybe they are trying a lot of different fad diets, intermittent fasting. I'm going to be gluten-free. I'm going to be vegan. And again, in itself, one of these things is not an indicator of an eating disorder. But if you notice more than one, that could definitely say something. Are they calorie counting? Are they really nitpicky about what foods they're having? Are they isolating and not being with other people? Maybe stomach upset or bloating, lots of food fears. So those all fall into that food and eating habits. Then there's overtraining. So again, their energy needs are already high. If they're going crazy extra and after practice, they end up doing extra training sessions or extra workouts or extra runs. This could be an indicator. Frequent injuries or slowed recovery. All of those could mean that they're overtraining. Other things, body image is listed there, and other, if there is laxative use, diuretics, self-induced vomiting is actually one of the most common ones among college age athletes. So just something to consider, like, have you, this is not something you would ever have to ask, but if someone notices like, hey, I've noticed Susie's been like throwing up in the bathroom, that would definitely be definitely be a red flag. Weight changes, it could be up or down. A lot of times we think of people under fueling as being underweight, and that may not always be the case. It doesn't always fit a body or person type. Isolating themselves when eating, body checking, and negative body image. These can all be signs of an eating disorder. So if you notice some of these things, what the heck do you do next? As I mentioned, if there's just one or two things, kind of monitor it, encourage them. Hey, have you been having your meals and snacks? Hey, don't forget when you go to your nursing rotations to pack a snack with you, print the schedule, do the highlight thing. Any of those can help. But if you notice more than two of the signs or symptoms or no improvement, that is definitely a sign to get extra help. And so as a coach, we think about this and that athletic trainers can do some of these screenings. They, of course, are very tied to our injury recovery, and they may know if an athlete is undertraining or overtraining. I'm sorry, underfueling and overtraining. Counseling services are excellent on campus, so make sure you take advantage of those resources. They are also willing to do team talks or things like that, which I think can be really helpful, especially with the anxiety levels that we're seeing now. These eating disorders and underfueling are definitely on the rise, and part of that may be tied to a perfectionist attitude, anxiety, trying to cope. Like if they have control over something, it feels a little bit better. Isolation, campus counseling can help with, or negative body image. So those are great things to reach out to them. And of course, dietitian, I have to put in my own little plug. If they have food habits, restricting, food fears, frequent dieting, these are all things that you could refer to me for. But of course, any of us can help screen for these. I've talked with almost every athletic department and counseling services department at each of these different schools. And they have all said, yes, we're happy to screen for eating disorder, but just remember that we usually don't full on counsel if something is diagnosed. The team approach is really key here. This statistic says 60% of those who seek treatment in a team approach are more successful. One statistic I saw even said closer to 80%. So really a team makes a huge difference, and you know this better than anyone, that a team makes a huge, huge difference. A coach is a part of that team. You can include the athletic trainer as a part of that team and any additional health professional. So that could be a dietitian, a therapist, primary care doctor who is versed on eating disorders. Some people don't catch it right away. So we want to make sure that we have someone who is able to screen for this with our athlete right in the middle, right? And even under coaching, I will put team there. They need the team behind them as well. A lot of times their biggest fear when I talk with an athlete is they're afraid if they have to go to treatment or even just 2 days a week go to an outpatient counselor, they are afraid that the team will think they're not pulling their weight, or that the team will think, oh, why isn't Susie at practice today? And so creating a team environment that is supportive of mental health and some of these additional challenges can be really, really helpful. The other thing that I mentioned earlier, but still goes along here, is if you had an athlete with an ACL tear or a broken bone or something like that, they would go see a doctor, they would go see a surgeon, they would have a trainer, of course, working with them and the coach, but they would also have physical therapy. They would have a adjusted strength and conditioning schedule. So just like you have the team approach with an injury, you can treat this the same way. So how do you have these difficult conversations? When I've talked with some of you, some of the things you say is like, I just don't know what to say. Like I've kind of noticed some things, but I don't know if it's a big deal. I don't want to make a big deal out of nothing. And so let's just kind of talk about some of these things. Things that are not recommended are to bring it up in front of their peers. That really shuts down the door. They really don't want to talk about it after that. So making sure that you keep kind of an open door policy, something that's in private so you can adjust the concerns, and only express concerns about I'm sorry, don't only express concerns about performance. Like, hey, you really haven't been performing well. What's going on? Let's make it more about their health, their overall well-being, making sure that we're not just strictly focused on their performance. Use accusatory statements or judgmental tone. I feel like this goes for everything. Anytime you've ever done counseling, I don't know, I'm married. We went through marriage counseling before we got married. And I just think a lot of these things are kind of your basic communication skills, but not accusing, right? We don't want to say like, you haven't been eating much, or, geez, you never eat pregame meal anymore. What's going on? Boy, it looks like you've lost weight. I think all of these things can be a little bit like kind of offensive and kind of shut down the door. Another one might be, stop. Why do you keep taking all these different uniforms? I can't just be giving out uniforms right and left. Like, let's figure this out. Or toughen up. You're so anxious all the time. What's going on? I think some of those, again, can kind of shut the door to communication. So also don't try to fix the problem. I have had some coaches in the past say like, well, just keep food logs and like track your calories and you'll lose weight. So that'll be better. And not understanding what's going on with the athlete, that could actually be a harmful recommendation. Or you're ending up trying to solve the problem and not hear them out. So that can again shut the door for communication. So just be careful what types of things you're recommending. But so what you can do is plan a private conversation. Maybe this is a walk, maybe it's going out for coffee, anything that's kind of one-on-one where you get your own time to chat without their peers around them. And use a lot of I statements. So I've noticed that you really haven't been eating pregame with us. Can you tell me more about that? Um, I've noticed that you've been pretty isolated from the team. Is everything going okay? I've noticed that, you've asked for a few different uniform sizes. Can you tell me more about that? There's a lot of ways that you can express concern without judgment, and I think that that would really help. So you've mentioned that you're really having trouble sleeping. Are you doing okay with that? Has it been getting any better? Would you like any help? And make sure that you're using a non-judgmental tone. Would you mind if I connect you with counseling services? I think they'd be really helpful there, and you're a great team leader. We need you at your best. And so just kind of taking down the stigma around it and making sure that they know that they are really, really supported in that. Even things like, would you mind if I connect you with the dietitian? I'm not really familiar with this diet, whatever it is, or I'm not really familiar with intermittent fasting. Like maybe Cara would be a good person to talk to. Oh, and I've heard she's really nice, whatever you want to say, but just a couple of things just to kind of get them connected. And my preferred form of referral is not for you to reach out to me directly and say, hey, we've got this thing going on. Um, if there are concerns, of course, raise them. But one of my favorite ways to connect with students is for you to email me and CC them on the email. Like, hey, Susie, we talked about meeting with the dietitian. I just wanted to get the two of you connected so you could work out a time to meet. And that's a really non-confrontational way to do that so that then it gives the athlete some power and I can reach back out to the athlete directly to get something scheduled. Make sure that you're focusing on overall health and overall well-being, respect them, and make sure that we, give them a little bit of space. There's probably going to be a little bit of resistance or maybe even denial, and that's okay. We want to be patient with them. We don't want to close the doors. I think so many people are afraid of saying the wrong thing. They don't say anything. I know before I worked with a lot of individuals who've had underfueling eating disorders. I was nervous. I thought, oh my gosh, if I say the wrong thing, like, will something go really bad? What if they won't talk to me again? And what I found is really just kind of saying, I've noticed that this is kind of being a big deal. How do you feel about it? Do you feel like you're thinking about food a lot? Would you ever consider help with that? And just keeping the door open and encouraging them to get some additional support. So, what can you do as a coach? Your voice totally matters. And I think that this is a really important thing to consider is not only your voice and anything that you are saying or doing in front of the team, but also your team leaders. What is the team culture? What are the team captains saying? Is there a weight stigma? Do you ever say something like, well, if you lose 5 pounds, you're going to run faster? We often put weight on performance and it doesn't always go that way. Do you feel in your mind, think for a second, that there's a certain look that makes an athlete really successful? If someone doesn't look like that, do you feel like they can't be as good? And what does that mean? Body image, of course, any negative body image, body checking that you do or that the captains do can influence the athletes. Mental health, especially the high anxiety that we've been seeing lately, can play a role. A lot of our athletes are looking for routine, they're looking for community, but they're also looking to kind of be perfect and have it all figured out, and that creates a lot of pressure. Do you put any of those pressures on yourself or the team captains? Do you make eating flexible and fun? Or do you say, don't eat donuts in the morning, they're bad for you? Or, oh my gosh, I was so bad this morning, I had blah, blah, blah. If you're using that kind of language around the team, it does create some of this good and bad food mentality, which can create a maybe not the best culture. And then also, are you eating enough? Are your team captains eating enough? Are they skipping meals or are they doing well? Are you skipping meals? Are you eating regular meals and snacks? Do you carry something with you on the road? Or do you say, oh my gosh, forget it. I'm so bad. I'm just going to eat this bag of Skittles on the bus. It's fine to eat Skittles. We don't have to call it good or bad. Maybe there is something, though, that maybe you didn't plan the snack ahead of time. And so that could be something that you work on in the future. And then prevention. So how do we do this? How do we prevent eating disorders? How do we prevent underfueling? Well, I think there's a great way to de-emphasize weight. We want to make sure that we're not just focused on the weight, that we are focused on, what is the performance goal? You mentioned you wanted your athlete to be faster. Great, let's work on that. You wanted your athlete to be stronger. Great, let's work on that. There are things that you can work on that maybe the weight will change because of it, but the weight change in itself may not create that performance benefit that you're looking for, and it definitely won't create a performance benefit that will stick. Change your language around food, check your own language, like we talked about healthy food, good versus bad food. Are you constantly doing the new diet trend? And just kind of recognizing those and how that might be impacting your team and kind of preventing those thoughts. So I've had a few teams actually that say like, hey, my team's thinking about going vegan. Can you come talk to them? Sure. I may not convince everybody one way or the other, but I can definitely give you the facts and we can kind of make an educated decision about it then. Let's see what else. Recognizing the signs and symptoms of underfueling. So we talked about those. Are they having trouble completing a workout? Are they having trouble concentrating? Are they isolating themselves from the team? Bring in experts, make sure the qualified people are talking about these topics. It can be great to talk with the team. It can be great to talk with leaders. It can be great to talk with you, like the coaches. And if there's anything that we need to make a better plan about, please let me know. There are a lot of great screening tools out there. That is not something that you would need to do, but that maybe the trainers could also be included with, and educating yourself on eating disorders. What are these signs and symptoms? How do we navigate the different options? And how do we make the best out of our team? Recognizing some of the underfueling, lots of anxiety. There's a lot of things that are fueling a lot of this undereating lately. And I've found even among a lot of the athletes that I've worked with, this isn't a one case fits all, but they find that when they control the food they're eating, they feel better. And part of that feeling better is because the whole world is out of control right now. So if they can control what they do or do not put in their body, whether it's too much or too little or this or that, it makes them feel in control. It gives them peace of mind and a lot of the anxiety goes away. But because of that, they could be underfueling and having a lot of other consequences that they're maybe not even recognizing. We talked about a lot today, understanding your athletes and why they have higher energy needs, what underfueling looks like, and some of the signs and symptoms, and just knowing that you aren't in this alone. You are one of the first people that may see it or recognize it, and that's why we wanted to talk about it today. But I want to make sure that you have the tools and know that you're not alone. We have a lot of great resources through campus counseling, through your trainers, through dietitians that can really help to screen and get a full picture so we can make a plan as a team as well. And talking with your athletes and prevention strategies is really good. You may even want to ask them, what's our team culture around food? Do you ever feel like I put foods on and off, good or bad, off limits, on limits, whatever? Does the team eat as a team? Are there little pockets? Like this little pocket eats this way, this little pocket eats this way. We want to make sure that we're not comparing people to others. Like, oh, if you just ate like Susie, we would all be performing so much better. Every individual is different. Every athlete is different. And I know that I don't like to be compared to other people. I know you probably don't like to be compared to other people. We're all doing the best that we can in the instances that we've been given. We want to make sure that we're respectful of that. So I hope this talk was really helpful to you in understanding the needs, the assessing, and what resources you may have available to you. If you have additional questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. As I mentioned, I would love to schedule on-campus visits moving forward. Whether it's a coach talk, maybe you have a training coming up that I can snag 20 minutes of at the beginning or the end. Maybe you have a team meeting coming up as you get ready for spring training or summer session. And so if there's anything that I can help with, please let me know. If there are additional resources you need, let me know. And if this is a topic that you're interested more in or still have questions about, again, let me know. I am here to help. So, with that, I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful March, and I hope you learned a little bit today about underfueling. Thank you for your time.